What if everything you thought you knew about ancient Egypt was only the surface of a far deeper, more mysterious truth? The pyramids, the temples, the pharaohs, all of it was built upon something far older, something woven into the very fabric of time itself. Before the first pharaoh ever ruled, before the sands of the desert had settled, before even the sun had risen for the first time, there was only chaos, a boundless, endless void. And from this darkness, the first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe emerged, shaping the world in ways few truly understand. But this wasn't a peaceful beginning. No, Egyptian mythology is not a simple tale of creation. It is a story of cosmic struggle, of gods who fought, loved, betrayed, and bled to shape existence as we know it. This is a world where divinity is not distant but deeply intertwined with the forces of nature, where the sun god Ra must battle a monstrous serpent every night just to ensure the dawn, where kingship itself is a prize fought over by gods, and where even death is not the end, but merely another kingdom to rule. Yet these myths are more than just stories. They are blueprints of an ancient belief system that influenced not only the great civilization of Egypt, but also the very way humans understood life, death, and the universe. These were not just gods. They were cosmic forces, personifications of order and chaos, life and destruction, justice and vengeance. And their influence stretches far beyond the past. Even today, echoes of these myths can be found in modern religions, in symbols of power, in the way we perceive rulers and the afterlife. So, what really happened in those first moments of creation? Who were the gods that shaped the cosmos, and how did their battles define the fate of the world? And, most importantly, what hidden truths lie within these ancient tales waiting to be uncovered? The answers are not what you expect. The primordial void and chaos before time, before space, before even the whisper of creation. There was nothing. Not the kind of nothing that feels like an empty room, nor the nothingness of a quiet night. This was absolute boundless void, an abyss without form or purpose. It stretched endlessly, an ocean of darkness with no surface, no bottom, no edges. It was pure chaos, raw, untamed potential waiting for something, anything, to shape it. This was the very beginning of what the ancients of Egypt called the first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe, a time when existence had yet to take its first breath. But within this swirling sea of disorder, something was stirring. The Egyptians saw the void not as lifeless, but brimming with unseen forces, an untapped energy waiting to be directed. This wasn't just empty blackness. It was the foundation of everything that would ever be. Think of it like a blank canvas, but instead of paper, it was infinite darkness, and instead of paint, it was the power of the cosmos itself. From this, the first whispers of creation began to emerge, an inevitable force pushing against the suffocating stillness. This concept of a primordial void isn't unique to Egypt. Other civilizations had their own interpretations, like the Greeks, with their chaos, or the Norse with Ginnungagap. But the Egyptians saw it differently. Their void wasn't a mistake, nor was it a meaningless abyss. It was a necessary beginning, a place from which life could rise. It was the womb of the universe, dark and unknowable, yet holding the very seeds of divinity. Everything we know, time, space, matter, was once trapped within this cosmic cradle, waiting for the right moment to be unleashed. Imagine standing in an endless, starless night, feeling the weight of eternity pressing in on all sides. That was the state of existence before the first gods took shape. No sun to rise, no land to walk on, no air to breathe. It was stillness beyond comprehension, a waiting game played by the universe itself. The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, was a story of emergence, of something forcing its way out of nothing, defying the grip of chaos. Yet, even within this void, there was power. A force older than time, older than the stars, waiting, just beneath the surface. It wasn't dead, it was sleeping. A restless, boiling sea of potential shifting beneath the unseen currents of what was to come. And from the depths of this abyss, something was about to rise. The Egyptians gave this chaos a name. It was more than just an idea. It was a being, an entity, the first great force of existence, and it would be the one to carry the weight of the cosmos before the gods themselves took form. But before we meet this ancient presence, let's take one more step back into the shadows, where the greatest mysteries of the first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe still lie hidden. Nun, the embodiment of chaos before the first land rose. Before the first god took shape, there was only Nun, the endless, formless water that cradled existence itself. To the ancient Egyptians, Nun wasn't just an ocean. It was the origin of everything. Imagine a vast, infinite sea stretching in every direction, but without waves, without movement, without light. It held within it the raw materials of creation, yet remained untouched by time. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe could not begin without it. Nun was chaos, but not in a destructive way. It was pure potential, waiting for something to happen. Unlike other gods, Nun was not a being with a defined form. He had no temple, no statues, no grand worship. Why? Because he was beyond all things, existing before the gods themselves. He was the unseen force, the backdrop of reality, the dark abyss that had always been and always would be. Even after creation began, the Egyptians believed Nun never truly vanished. Instead, he lurked beneath the surface, beneath the Nile, beneath the sky, waiting in the depths of the world. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe did not erase him. They merely emerged from his endless waters. Think of it like the deep ocean we know today. Scientists say we've explored less than 10% of Earth's oceans, and what lies in the depths remains a mystery. The Egyptians believed Nun was much the same, a place of secrets, unreachable and unknowable. Even the mightiest gods respected his power. In some myths, when the world faced destruction, it was Nun's waters that threatened to rise again and swallow everything whole. Chaos was never truly defeated. It was merely held at bay by the fragile balance of creation. Nun wasn't just the past. He was also the ever-present reminder of what came before. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe may have risen from him, but they could never erase his influence. He remained beneath the surface of existence, a shadow behind the light, a warning that chaos was always waiting. The Nile, Egypt's life-giving river, was seen as a direct connection to Nun. Its floods a reminder that even creation depended on chaos to survive. But from this endless abyss, something remarkable happened. For the first time, a shape began to emerge, a solid form, something real in a world of nothingness. The Egyptians believed that out of Nun's eternal waters, a sacred mound rose, the first land to ever exist. It was small, but it was everything. A symbol of stability, of life, of the possibility that something could exist beyond the void. And it was here, atop this mysterious land, that the first great god would take his place. What was this land? And who was the being destined to stand upon it? The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe was only just beginning to unfold. Benben, the first land from the endless sea of Nun, something extraordinary happened. Land emerged. A single mound, rising from the dark abyss like an island in an ocean with no shore. This was Benben, the first piece of solid ground in all existence. Imagine standing at the peak of a mountain that no one has ever seen before, surrounded by nothing but the void. That was Benben, the foundation upon which creation itself would unfold. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe could not exist without it. It was a symbol of order emerging from chaos, a promise that stability could rise from the unknown. The name Benben wasn't just a poetic term. It held deep spiritual meaning. The Egyptians saw it as the heart of creation, the very first sign that life was possible. It was no ordinary mound. It was sacred. In later times, pyramids and temple obelisks were shaped in its image, their towering forms reaching toward the heavens. Even the famous Benben stone, housed in the great temples, of Heliopolis was believed to hold the essence of divine power. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe was a story of emergence, and Benben was its first chapter. But what exactly was Benben? Some say it was a real geological formation, an ancient hill once visible after the Nile's seasonal floods, inspiring the myth. Others believe it was purely symbolic, representing the moment when chaos gave way to structure. Either way, its importance was undeniable. To the Egyptians, it was proof that life could rise from the abyss. Every flood, every harvest, every sunrise was a reenactment of that first moment, when Benben broke through Noon's grasp and declared that the world had begun. Yet, Benben was not just a lifeless mound. It was a stage, waiting for the arrival of something or someone. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe needed a force, a divine presence to take its first step upon the sacred land. And so, from the swirling energies of creation, a god emerged. A god unlike any other, one who did not come from parents, nor was shaped by another's hand. He was self-created, born from the will of existence itself. His name was Atum. To the ancient Egyptians, he was both the creator and the sun, the force that would bring order to the void. Standing upon Benben, he gazed upon the endless waters of Noon and decided that the time had come. Creation was no longer just an idea. It was about to become reality. But how could one god alone in the universe shape all of existence? How did he bring forth the heavens, the earth, and everything in between? The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe was about to take its next monumental step. Atum, the self-created god imagined standing at the dawn of existence, where there is no sky, no stars, no sound, only an endless sea of nothingness. And then, from this void, a presence emerges, a being of pure will, self-formed, needing no creator. This was Atum, the first god, the great architect of all things. Unlike the gods that would come after him, Atum had no mother, no father. He simply was. Standing atop the sacred mound of Benben, he gazed upon the waters of Nun and understood that he alone must bring the universe into being. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe had found its first true ruler. Atum was not just a god. He was everything in its earliest form. He carried all potential within himself, the embodiment of creation waiting to unfold. The Egyptians believed that Atum contained both masculine and feminine aspects, a complete being who needed no counterpart to bring life into existence. This idea might sound strange, but it mirrors a deeper truth. The first spark of creation must come from somewhere, and Atum was that spark. Like a seed containing the blueprint for a towering tree, he held the entire cosmos within him, waiting for the moment to release it. But how does a lone god create an entire universe? The myth tells us that Atum brought life into being in an unusual, yet deeply symbolic way, through his own breath, his own body. Some versions say he spoke the first deities into existence, while others suggest he simply willed them into being. The more colorful tales, however, claim that Atum used a far more personal method, birthing creation through an act of divine self-generation. To the Egyptians, this wasn't crude. It was a powerful metaphor for self-sufficiency, for the idea that existence itself was born from pure force of will. Atum wasn't just the creator, he was also the sun, the first great light in the cosmos. As the sun god, he was the force that would rise each day, bringing light where there was once only darkness. Think about the moment just before sunrise, when the world is still, waiting, and then, suddenly, the first golden rays break the horizon. That was Atum's role in the grand myth of the first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe. He was the light that shattered the eternal night, the force that brought clarity to chaos. Yet, even a god as mighty as Atum could not shape the universe alone. He had planted the first seed, but for creation to truly flourish, more forces were needed, forces that could shape the sky, the wind, the very breath of life itself. And so, from Atum's divine essence, the first pair of gods emerged. These twin beings would become the architects of air and moisture, the unseen elements that give form to the world. But who were these deities? And how would they shape the next chapter of the first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe? The answer was about to take form. Ra and his role with creation set in motion, Atum took on a new form, one that would forever shape the balance of the universe. He became Ra, the supreme sun god, the ruler of all that existed. No longer just the lone force atop Ben-Ben, Ra now reigned as the bringer of light, the one who would chase away the eternal darkness. Each day, as the golden sun rose over the land, it was Ra ascending into the heavens, bringing order to the world. And each night, as the sun set, he began his perilous journey through the underworld, fighting against chaos to ensure the next dawn. The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, depended on his endless cycle. Ra's journey was not just poetic symbolism, it was a battle. The Egyptians believed that every night as Ra traveled through the Duat, the underworld, he faced his greatest enemy, Apophis, the monstrous serpent of chaos. This cosmic struggle wasn't just mythology, it was their explanation for the dangers of the night, the uncertainty of the unseen. Would the sun rise again? Would order triumph over disorder? Every dawn was proof that Ra had won yet another battle, securing the balance of existence for another day. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe hinged on this eternal war between light and darkness. To truly grasp Ra's importance, imagine a world where the sun never rises, where there is no warmth, no time, no life. The Egyptians knew their very survival depended on the sun, and so they placed Ra above all. He wasn't just a god, he was the god, the divine force that made all things possible. Pharaohs claimed to be his descendants, temples were built in his honor, and the great pyramids were aligned with his celestial journey. Every morning, as the sun bathed the desert in gold, it was a reminder of Ra's power, a reassurance that the first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe still maintained their watch over existence. Yet even Ra was not all-powerful. His light sustained life, but it also cast shadows. He ruled with wisdom, but he was not immune to fear. One legend tells of a time when humanity rebelled, turning against his divine rule. Enraged, Ra sent the goddess Sekhmet, his lion-headed warrior, to punish them. But as her wrath grew, so did the destruction. Realizing he had unleashed a force too powerful to control, Ra had to trick Sekhmet into drinking a river of red-dyed beer, calming her fury before she wiped out mankind entirely. This story revealed an unsettling truth. Even the greatest gods could miscalculate, and even order could become dangerous if left unchecked. But if Ra ruled over creation, who governed the unseen forces of life, the air, the moisture, the very essence of existence? Creation was not yet complete, and the first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe had more to unveil. From Ra's divine being, two new deities would emerge, twin forces that would shape the very fabric of reality. Who were they, and how did they shape the next step in creation? The answer was about to take form. Shu and Tefnut, air and moisture. From the essence of Ra, the first divine pair was born, Shu and Tefnut, the twin forces that would shape the natural world. They were not gods of war or destruction, nor did they rule from golden thrones. Instead, they governed something far more fundamental, the very breath of life itself. Shu, the god of air, and Tefnut, the goddess of moisture, were the invisible forces that made existence possible. Without them, the first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe could not move forward. Air and water, two elements so ordinary yet so essential, were now woven into the fabric of reality. Shu was more than just air, he was space itself, the vast expanse that allowed all things to have form. Imagine a world without air, not just breathless but utterly crushed, with no room for movement, no distinction between sky and earth. Shu was the one who lifted the heavens, creating the space needed for all things to thrive. He was the invisible force that filled the gaps between beings. the gentle breeze that carried life forward. The Egyptians saw him in the desert winds, in the spaces between stars, in the simple act of breathing. The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, needed him to keep chaos at bay. Tefnut, his twin, was just as vital. She was moisture, the essence of water that nourished the land, the gentle rain that gave birth to crops, the humidity in the air that sustained life. While Shu provided space, Tefnut provided sustenance. She was the cool mist at dawn, the soft dew on the fields, the unseen force that ensured balance. Without her, there would be only dryness, sterility, lifeless dust. The Egyptians understood her power intimately. After all, they depended on the Nile, the river that brought life to the desert. And in Tefnut, they saw the divine reflection of that necessity. Together, Shu and Tefnut were the first great balance, two forces that could not exist without each other. Just as the wind carries the rain and the sky embraces the clouds, they were bound by an eternal connection. The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, was not a tale of single beings acting alone, but of interconnected forces shaping reality. In harmony, Shu's air allowed Tefnut's moisture to spread, and Tefnut's water gave meaning to Shu's breath. They were not simply siblings. They were the first divine partners, proving that creation was not the act of one, but the work of many. Yet even the gods were not immune to misfortune. One legend tells of the time Shu and Tefnut became lost in the primordial world, vanishing from Ra's sight. The great sun god, fearing the loss of his beloved children, sent his divine eye, an aspect of his own being, to search for them. This moment was not just a myth, it was a reflection of a deeper truth. Even the first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, had moments of uncertainty, moments when balance wavered and chaos threatened to reclaim its hold. But what happened when Shu and Tefnut were found? And what role would their descendants play in shaping the physical world? The next step in creation was about to unfold. Shu's role. With the birth of Shu, the universe gained something it had never known before: separation. Before him, everything was tangled together, an indistinguishable mass of sky, earth, water, and darkness. But Shu, the god of air, had one crucial purpose: to create space, to establish boundaries. He was not just the gentle wind that cooled the desert. He was the force that lifted the heavens, tearing them away from the earth below. Without him, the first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, could not take shape. Because without separation, there could be no form, no direction, no life. Shu's act of creation was not a simple one. Imagine trying to push apart two things that have been stuck together since the beginning of time. The weight of the sky pressed down upon the earth, unyielding, suffocating. But Shu, with his boundless strength, rose between them, using his arms to keep them apart. He stood as a pillar between the heavens and the world below, a silent guardian, ensuring that chaos could not collapse creation back into itself. The Egyptians saw this act as more than myth. It was the very reason why the sky did not fall, why the air remained open, why the first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, could continue. But Shu was not only strength, he was also balance. In his role, he maintained the delicate harmony between what was above and what lay below. The Egyptians believed that if he ever wavered, if he ever faltered, the sky would crash down, smothering all life. In this way, Shu was more than a god. He was a constant force, an eternal protector. He was the invisible framework holding everything together, the unseen yet vital space that allowed life to flourish. Without him, the air itself would vanish, and the cosmos would descend back into chaos. And yet Shu was not feared. He was beloved. He was the breath that filled the lungs, the wind that carried the scent of blooming lotus flowers, the force that allowed birds to soar and voices to carry. To the Egyptians, every inhale was a reminder of his presence, every exhale a silent prayer of gratitude. The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, was not just a tale of gods and power. It was the story of the very forces that surrounded them every day, unseen but always felt. But even the gods who give life must one day face loss. Shu's world was not without sorrow, and his place in the great myth was far from complete. For his role was not just to lift the heavens, it was to bring forth the next generation of deities, those who would shape the very ground upon which civilization would stand. From him and Tefnut, two powerful beings would be born, their destinies forever entwined with the fate of the cosmos. But who were they? And how would they shape the next stage of creation? The first gods, Egypt and creation, of the universe was about to take its next monumental step. Tefnut, goddess of moisture. If Shu was the breath of the world, Tefnut was its lifeblood. She was moisture in all its forms. The dew at dawn, the mist over the Nile, the rain that nourished the land. Where Shu provided space, Tefnut provided sustenance. Without her, the world would wither into dust, lifeless and barren. The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, needed more than just air to take shape. It needed water, the sacred essence of life itself. And Tefnut was that force, flowing through creation, unseen but essential. To the Egyptians, water was more than just a necessity, it was divine. The Nile was the very heart of civilization, and every drop of rain was a gift from the gods. Tefnut embodied this sacred connection. She was the goddess who ensured fertility, the one who allowed crops to grow, the one who made life flourish. Without her, Egypt would be nothing more than an endless desert. The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, was not just about great deities. It was about the very elements that made survival possible. But Tefnut was not only nurturing, she could also be fierce. Moisture could bring life, but it could also bring storms. In times of chaos, the Egyptians believed that Tefnut could rage, sending violent floods or relentless droughts. She was balance, both gentle and powerful, both necessary and unpredictable. She reminded humanity that water was a gift, but one that must be respected. Just as she could nourish, she could also take away. The first gods, Egypt and creation of four. The universe was a delicate equilibrium, and Tefnut played a key role in maintaining it. Like her twin brother Shu, Tefnut was a force of balance between heaven and earth. Together, they shaped the foundation of existence, creating the space and sustenance needed for life to grow. But their journey was not without hardship. In one myth, Tefnut and Shu disappeared into the unknown, causing Ra himself to panic. Without them, the world fell into disorder. The skies grew heavy, the land turned dry. Desperate, Ra sent his divine eye to find them, a sign of his power and his love. It was a reminder that even the gods could feel loss, that even creation itself was fragile. Tefnut eventually returned, bringing balance once more. But the world was still incomplete. There was space to breathe, there was moisture to sustain. But where was the land upon which life would walk? The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, had brought forth air and water. Now it was time for earth and sky to take form. And from Shu and Tefnut, two powerful deities were about to be born, their presence shaping the physical world as we know it. But who were these new gods? And how would they transform existence itself? The answer, it was about to unfold. Geb and Nut, earth and sky, from the union of Shu and Tefnut, two powerful deities were born. Geb, the god of the earth, and Nut, the goddess of the sky. But they were not merely rulers of land and heavens. They were the land and heavens themselves. Geb was the solid ground beneath one's feet, the mountains, the valleys, the fertile soil that gave birth to life. Nut was the vast expanse above, the endless dome stretching overhead, the celestial vault that held the stars. Together, they formed the physical world, the next great step in the first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe. But Geb and Nut were inseparable. Unlike Shu and Tefnut, who worked in harmony while remaining distinct, these two were deeply entwined. The myths describe them as lovers locked in an eternal embrace, with Nut's body arching over Geb's form, touching him in an unbreakable bond. Their connection was so strong that they refused to separate. And because of this, creation itself was at a standstill. There was no space between the heavens and the earth, only an unbroken, suffocating union. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe had taken form, but life could not flourish until something changed. And so, Shu, their father, was forced to intervene. With great effort, he placed himself between them, pushing them apart, stretching Nut high into the heavens while pressing Geb down into the earth. This was an act of both creation and sacrifice. Shu would forever bear the weight of the sky, his arms raised eternally to keep Nut from falling back down. This separation was painful, yet necessary. The sky and earth had been torn apart, but in doing so, the world as we know it was finally born. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe had achieved its next stage. There was now space for the sun to rise, for rivers to flow, for life to begin. But the love between Geb and Nut did not fade. Though they were separated, their connection remained strong. The Egyptians believed that Nut, the sky, mourned for her lost embrace, and so each night she swallowed the sun, holding it within her body until morning, when she gave birth to it once more. This daily cycle, the setting and rising of the sun, was seen as Nut's eternal devotion to Geb, a reminder that even apart, they were always connected. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe was not just about power. It was about love, loss, and the balance that held all things together. Yet the tale of Geb and Nut was far from over. Their love had consequences. Though separated, they had already created life together, and their children, powerful, divine, destined for greatness, would shape the fate of gods and mortals alike. These new deities would govern life, death, chaos, and magic itself, taking the story of the first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe into its next grand chapter. But who were these children? And how would they shape the destiny of the world? The next part of creation was about to unfold. Nut's cosmic role. Though separated from Geb, Nut did not simply exist as an empty sky. She became the celestial mother, the great cosmic arch that held the stars, the sun, and the moon. She was more than just the heavens. She was the very cycle of time itself. Every night as the sun disappeared beyond the horizon, it was believed that Nut had swallowed it, and every morning she gave birth to it again, renewing existence with each dawn. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe was not just about how things were made, but about how they continued, how the universe moved, how life persisted, how death was not the end, but part of a great eternal cycle. But Nut's role extended far beyond the daily rebirth of the sun. She was the keeper of the stars, the cosmic dome that cradled the universe. The Egyptians saw her body stretching across the heavens, her skin adorned with constellations, her limbs touching the four corners of the world. She was the map of destiny, the holder of divine secrets, the silent witness to everything that had ever happened. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe was written in the stars, and Nut was its guardian, ensuring that the balance remained unbroken. Nut was also a mother in another sense. She was the one who bore some of the most powerful gods in Egyptian mythology. But her children, Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys, were not destined for a peaceful existence. They would become entangled in war, betrayal, resurrection, and vengeance, shaping the fate of gods and mortals alike. Yet their very birth was a defiance of cosmic law. When Ra, the great sun god, learned that Nut was pregnant, he declared that she would not be allowed to give birth on any day of the year. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe had been carefully structured, and Ra feared that her children would disrupt the divine order. But Nut was not without allies. She turned to Thoth, the god of wisdom, who devised a clever plan. He gambled with the moon, winning enough extra light to create 5 additional days outside of the traditional 360-day year. On these new days, days that existed beyond Ra's decree, Nut gave birth to her children, bringing forth the gods who would forever change history. This myth was more than just a story. It was an explanation for the Egyptian calendar itself. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe were not just beings. They were time. They were reality. They were the fabric of existence itself. Despite her celestial power, Nut was also a goddess of comfort. She was the one who welcomed souls into the afterlife, the soft embrace awaiting those who had departed from the mortal world. Many tombs were painted with her image, her arms outstretched, her body protecting those who had passed. To the Egyptians, the sky was not distant. It was a mother, a protector, a final resting place. Even in death, Nut was there, watching over all, ensuring that the souls of the departed would rise again like the sun at dawn. But what of Nut's children? What fate awaited these divine siblings, born in defiance of Ra's command? The first, God's Egypt and creation of the universe, was about to enter its most dramatic chapter yet, one filled with love, betrayal, murder, and the battle between order and chaos itself. The eye of Ra and divine. Search for all his wisdom and power, Ra was not invincible. Even the greatest of gods could experience loss. And when Shu and Tefnut, the gods of air and moisture, went missing, Ra was overcome with fear. The world was still, young, fragile, unfinished. Without them, the balance of creation itself was in danger. But Ra was not a god who waited. He acted. And so he sent forth one of his most powerful manifestations, his eye. This was no ordinary eye, but a living force, an extension of his own divine being. The first God's Egypt and creation of the universe was not just shaped by gods, it was shaped by their power, their emotions, their very essence. The eye of Ra was more than just a tool. It was a conscious entity, a fearsome goddess in her own right. She scoured the universe, burning with the intensity of the sun, searching for the lost. Gods. In some versions of the myth, the eye took the form of a lioness, relentless and untamed, a reflection of Ra's own fury. She was his wrath, his will, his watchful gaze upon the world. And when she finally found Shu and Tefnut, she did not simply guide them home. She commanded them, enforcing the divine order that Ra had set in place. The first God's Egypt and creation of the universe was one of power, but also of control. But the return of Shu and Tefnut did not bring an end to the story. When Ra called back his eye, he found that it had changed. It had taken on a life of its own, no longer just an extension of him, but an independent force. And like any being given freedom, it resisted being tamed. In some myths, the eye, now filled with rage at being replaced, lashed out, threatening destruction. To appease it, Ra adorned it with honor, placing it on his forehead as the uraeus, the sacred cobra that would become a symbol of divine authority for every pharaoh who ruled after him. The first God's Egypt and creation of the universe was not just about creation. It was about the balance of power, the fine line between order and chaos, even within the gods themselves. The Eye of Ra became a recurring force in Egyptian mythology. It was sent out in times of crisis, taking different forms, sometimes a protector, sometimes a warrior, sometimes a destroyer. It was the burning sun itself, the unblinking gaze that watched over the world. It represented justice, vengeance, divine wrath. And yet, it was also a symbol of protection, appearing on amulets and temple walls, guarding against evil. The first God's Egypt and creation of the universe was not built solely on kindness or cruelty. It was built on balance, on forces that could both create and destroy. And it was in this moment of divine reunion that something incredible happened. As Ra rejoiced at the return of his children, he shed tears of pure joy. But these were not ordinary tears. As they touched the earth, something unexpected emerged: humanity itself. The Egyptians did not see mankind as an accident, nor as an afterthought. They believed that people were born from the emotions of a god, created not just with divine power, but with divine love. The first God's Egypt and creation of the universe had shaped the world. But now, for the first time, it had also shaped mortals. But what role would humanity play in this grand cosmic order? And how would they be judged when their time on Earth came to an end? The answer lay in the realm of the dead, where the greatest of gods would weigh the hearts of mortals, deciding their fate for all eternity. Tears of Ra and birth of humanity creation was nearly complete. The heavens were raised, the earth was set, the air and waters flowed in balance. But something was missing: life itself. The world, as magnificent as it was, remained empty, a vast and silent masterpiece waiting for something more. And then, in a moment of divine emotion, it happened. As Ra rejoiced in the return of Shu and Tefnut, he wept. But these were no ordinary tears. As they fell to the earth, something miraculous occurred. Humanity was born. The first god's Egypt. And creation of the universe had shaped existence. But now, for the first time, it had also shaped mortals. To the Egyptians, this was a powerful truth. Humans were not created by accident or out of necessity, but from the very emotions of a god. We were not shaped from clay, nor forged from fire, but brought forth from divine tears. This made humanity deeply connected to the gods, bound by something more than mere worship. It was a reminder that people were not separate from the cosmic order, but a part of it, living reflections of the forces that had shaped the universe itself. The first god's Egypt and creation of the universe was not just about deities. It was about us, about our place within the grand design. Yet, as with all things in Egyptian mythology, this creation was not without consequence. Ra had given life to humanity, but with life came chaos. Mortals, unlike the gods, were unpredictable. They loved, they fought, they built, they destroyed. And as time passed, Ra began to grow weary of them. He watched as humans strayed from the divine path, as they rebelled against the order he had so carefully established. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe had given birth to mortals, but had also given them free will. And free will, Ra soon realized, was both a blessing and a curse. It is in this moment that Egyptian mythology takes a darker turn. Enraged by humanity's defiance, Ra decided that they must be punished. He sent his eye, his most fearsome aspect, often identified with the lioness goddess Sekhmet, to cleanse the earth of those who had turned against him. And so began a time of bloodshed, where mortals faced the full wrath of the gods. The destruction was so fierce that even Ra, upon seeing it, grew horrified. He realized that if he did not stop it, humanity would be wiped out completely. And so, in a desperate act of mercy, he tricked Sekhmet into drinking a flood of red-dyed beer, calming her fury before it was too late. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe had given mankind life, but they had also learned just how fragile that life could be. This story was not just a tale of divine punishment, it was a warning. It reminded the Egyptians that their existence was a gift, but one that must be honored. Humanity had been born from the tears of a god, shaped from love, yet also tested by judgment. They were not playthings of the gods, but participants in the great cosmic balance, walking the fine line between order and chaos. The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, had given them a place, but it was up to them to prove that they deserved it. But the tale of humanity was only one piece of the grand design. Among the gods, a new generation had already taken form, deities, who would shape the fate of both mortals and immortals alike. The children of Geb and Nut had arrived, and with them a tale of love, betrayal, vengeance, and redemption was about to unfold. Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys. From the divine union of Geb, the earth, and Nut, the sky, 4 powerful gods were born: Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys. But these were no ordinary deities. Their stories would shape the fate of gods and mortals alike, weaving a tale of love, betrayal, vengeance, and resurrection that would echo throughout eternity. If the first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe had established the foundations of existence, these 4 would determine how it was ruled. They were not merely forces of nature. They were the embodiment of life, death, order, and chaos itself. Osiris, the eldest, was destined to become king. He was wise, just, and beloved by both gods and mortals. Under his rule, Egypt flourished. He brought knowledge, agriculture, and law, teaching humanity how to live in harmony. He was not just a ruler, he was a civilizer, the god who elevated mankind from mere survival to prosperity. His wife Isis was equally revered, a goddess of magic, healing, and devotion. She was the protector of the weak, the guardian of wisdom, and the embodiment of unwavering loyalty. Together, Osiris and Isis were the ideal divine couple, the foundation of the first gods' Egypt and creation of the universe's balance. But where there is order, there must also be chaos. And chaos took the form of Set, Osiris's jealous brother. Unlike Osiris, Set was wild, unpredictable, and ambitious. He was the storm, the desert, the force that could bring destruction as easily as strength. Set was not inherently evil. He was necessary, the counterbalance to stability. But his rivalry with Osiris grew into hatred, and that hatred would soon turn to murder. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe had seen divine creation. But now, for the first time, it would witness divine betrayal. Nephthys, the fourth sibling, was often overshadowed by the others, but she played a crucial role. Though married to Set, her heart lay elsewhere. She was the goddess of mourning, the unseen force that guided souls to the afterlife, the quiet presence at the edge of every great event. If Isis represented the magic of life, Nephthys embodied the mystery of death. She would become one of the greatest allies in the tragedy about to unfold. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe had given birth to powerful deities, but now their destinies were on a collision course. Set's jealousy reached its breaking point. He could not stand Osiris's rule, nor his brother's admiration by gods and mortals alike. And so he plotted. He devised a cruel trap, tricking Osiris into lying inside a beautifully crafted coffin, only to seal it shut and cast it into the Nile. Osiris, the great king, the bringer of civilization, was now trapped, helpless, drifting toward his doom. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe had witnessed creation, but now it would witness destruction. But was this truly the end? Could a god so vital, so beloved, truly be erased? Or would his story take an unexpected turn, setting the stage for one of the most famous resurrections in all mythology? The answer lay in the hands of Isis, the goddess who would stop at nothing to bring her beloved husband back. Osiris as judge of the dead death was not the end for Osiris. Though his brother Set had betrayed and murdered him, the story of Osiris was far from over. In fact, his death marked the beginning of his greatest role yet. He did not simply fade into the afterlife, he became its ruler. Osiris, the once great king of Egypt, now reigned over the underworld, presiding as the judge of the dead. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe had established the world of the living, but now it had shaped the world of the dead as well. Osiris's journey to the underworld was not immediate. After Set had sealed him in a coffin and cast him into the Nile, Isis, his devoted wife, searched tirelessly to recover his body. She finally found it, hidden in a distant land, but Set was relentless. In his rage, he dismembered Osiris, scattering his body parts across Egypt. Yet even this could not stop Isis. Using her powerful magic, she gathered the pieces, reassembled her husband, and for a brief moment, brought him back to life. It was in this moment that she conceived their son, Horus, the Avenger who would one day challenge Set. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe had witnessed its first resurrection, a promise that death was not always final. But Osiris could not remain in the land of the living. He had been changed, transformed by his death. His place was now in Duat, the Egyptian underworld, where he would oversee the judgment of souls. Unlike other rulers, Osiris did not demand worship or fear. He demanded justice. He was not merely a king, he was a judge, one who weighed the hearts of the dead against the feather of my hat. the goddess of truth. If a soul was pure, they were allowed to enter the field of reeds, a paradise mirroring the beauty of Egypt itself. If they were wicked, they were devoured by Ammit, the fearsome creature who ensured that no evil would pass into eternity. The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, had given mortals life, but now it also determined their fate beyond death. This vision of the afterlife was not one of endless suffering or eternal bliss. It was one of balance. The Egyptians did not believe in blind punishment. They believed in consequences. Each person carried their own destiny in their heart, and Osiris merely revealed what was already there. Even pharaohs, the supposed divine rulers of Egypt, were not exempt. Their deeds were measured just like anyone else's, reinforcing the idea that morality was not just for the weak, it was for everyone. The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, had set forth a cosmic order, and Osiris ensured that it was upheld even in the realm of the dead. But while Osiris ruled in the underworld, the living world was not yet at peace. His son, Horus, had been born with a destiny to reclaim his father's throne, to challenge Set, and to restore balance to Egypt. The battle between order and chaos, light and darkness, was far from over. Would Horus succeed, or would Set's reign of turmoil continue? The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, was about to witness its most legendary battle yet. Horus and the cosmic struggle. The death of Osiris left a void, not just in the underworld, but in the world of the living. The rightful king was gone, and Set, the god of chaos, had seized the throne of Egypt. Disorder reigned, and balance was broken. But Osiris had left behind a son, Horus, the falcon-headed god of kingship and vengeance. From the moment of his birth, Horus was destined for one purpose: to reclaim his father's throne and restore order. The first gods, Egypt and creation of life, the universe had seen creation and destruction. But now, it would witness a battle that would shake the cosmos itself. Horus did not grow up in a palace. His mother Isis knew that Set would seek to destroy him, just as he had destroyed Osiris. So she hid her son in the marshes of the Nile, raising him in secret, teaching him the wisdom and power he would one day need to challenge his uncle. But Set was relentless. He sent scorpions, assassins, and storms to find the child, yet each time Isis protected him with her unmatched magic. Horus was not just a prince, he was a symbol of resilience, the embodiment of rightful kingship, and the ultimate counterforce to chaos. The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, had set the stage for the greatest battle in mythological history. When Horus came of age, he finally emerged from hiding and challenged Set for the throne of Egypt. What followed was not a single battle, but a war, one that raged for decades, fought across the heavens, the earth, and even the divine court of the gods. The battles were brutal. In one version, Set ripped out Horus's eye, but the god Thoth, the keeper of wisdom, restored it, giving rise to the Eye of Horus, a symbol of healing and protection still recognized today. The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, had long been a story of creation, but now it was a story of justice, of the struggle to reclaim what was rightfully lost. The gods themselves were divided. Some sided with Horus, believing in his right to rule. Others supported Set, arguing that strength, not birthright, determined kingship. The conflict became so intense that even Ra, the great sun god, grew weary of the endless fighting. The battle had to end. So, at last, the gods assembled in judgment, and the final trial began. The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, had given Egypt its divine rulers, but now it would determine who was truly worthy of the throne. After much debate, the gods ruled in favor of Horus. Justice had prevailed. Set, though powerful, was cast down. Some myths say he was exiled to the desert, where he would remain as a force of chaos, forever testing the strength of the world. Others say that Ra, recognizing Set's strength, assigned him a new duty, protecting the sun gods, boat from Apophis, the great serpent of darkness. In either case, Set was no longer king. The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe had restored order, and Horus at last took his rightful place on the throne. But the story did not end there. The victory of Horus was not just a personal triumph, it was a cosmic law, a divine truth that would shape Egypt for all time. Every pharaoh who ruled after him was seen as his earthly embodiment, carrying forward the legacy of divine kingship. To rule Egypt was not just to wield power, it was to uphold the balance between order and chaos, to walk in the footsteps of the gods. The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, had not just shaped mythology, it had shaped an empire. Yet, even with Horus on the throne, chaos was never truly gone. Set still lurked in the shadows, and the battle between order and disorder would never fully end. The struggle between these forces was not just a myth, it was a reflection of life itself, of the constant need to fight for balance, to reclaim what is lost, and to ensure that justice always prevails. But if Set was chaos, was he truly a villain? Or did he still have a necessary role to play in the grand design? The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, was about to reveal another side of the story. Set, the god of chaos. Set is often remembered as the villain, the god who murdered Osiris, the usurper of the throne, the embodiment of chaos itself. But was he truly evil? The answer is far more complex. Set was not merely a force of destruction, he was also a protector, a warrior, a necessary counterbalance in the cosmic order. The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, was not a simple tale of good versus evil, but one of balance, and Set, though feared, had a role that could not be ignored. Set was the god of storms, deserts, and disorder. Where Osiris represented civilization and prosperity, Set was the untamed wild. He ruled over the vast, empty lands beyond the fertile Nile, where the sands shifted unpredictably, where chaos reigned. The Egyptians did not view the desert as evil, but as a testing ground. Harsh, yes, but necessary. It was Set's domain, and through him, they understood that without hardship, there could be no growth. The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, needed not just gods of order, but also gods who could challenge it. Despite his conflicts with Osiris and Horus, Set was not without honor. In fact, he played one of the most crucial roles in protecting the universe. Every night as Ra's solar boat traveled through the underworld, it was Set who stood at the bow, spear in hand, fighting against Apophis, the great serpent of chaos. Without Set's strength, the sun would never rise again. He was a paradox, both the bringer of disorder and the defender of creation. The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, had given him a role that was neither purely good nor purely but one of necessity. Yet Set's ambitions led to his downfall. His hunger for power drove him to kill Osiris, to battle Horus, to defy the gods themselves. And though he lost the throne, he was never truly defeated. The desert remained, storms still raged, and the chaotic forces of the world could never be entirely tamed. In some versions of the myth, Set was exiled, forever wandering the barren lands. In others, he was forgiven, given a new purpose as Ra's guardian. Either way, he was never erased, never destroyed. The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, understood that chaos, though dangerous, could never be fully eliminated. It could only be balanced. Set's legacy endured throughout Egyptian history. Some pharaohs even honored him, recognizing that strength and cunning were as important as wisdom and justice. Warriors prayed to him for victory, travelers sought his protection in the desert, and even those who despised his betrayal acknowledged that without him, the world would be incomplete. The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, was a tale of light and shadow, of gods who shaped the cosmos not through perfection, but through struggle. And among those who played a role in that struggle, there was one often overlooked: Set's own wife, Nephthys. Unlike her husband, she was not a god of destruction, but a quiet force of guidance and protection, and her role, though subtle, would prove to be just as vital in the grand design. Nephthys, protector of the dead, among the great gods of Egypt, there was one who often remained in the shadows, Nephthys, the quiet yet powerful goddess of mourning, protection, and the unseen realms. Unlike her sister Isis, who was celebrated as the goddess of life and magic, Nephthys existed on the fringes, watching over the souls of the dead, guiding them into the afterlife. She was the soft whisper at the edge of existence, the unseen force that ensured that no soul was forgotten. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe was a tale of power, war, and creation. But it was also a tale of care, of guardianship, of those who worked in silence to maintain the cosmic order. Though Nephthys was married to Set, the god of chaos, their union was not one of love. In many myths, their relationship was distant, cold, lacking the harmony seen in Isis and Osiris. And yet Nephthys did not follow her husband's path of destruction. Instead, she chose a different role, one of compassion. When Set murdered Osiris, it was Nephthys who stood beside Isis, weeping for her fallen brother, aiding in his restoration. The first gods. Egypt and creation of the universe was not just shaped by those who fought for power, but also by those who worked behind the scenes, ensuring that the cycle of life and death remained unbroken. Nephthys was not a goddess of grand temples or royal decrees. Instead, she was honored in funerary rites, whispered about in the prayers of the grieving. She was the goddess who wrapped herself in the veils of the afterlife, walking among the dead, offering them comfort on their journey. To the Egyptians, death was not an end, but a transition. And Nephthys was the one who ensured that souls were not lost in the darkness. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe had created the living world, but it had also created a world beyond, and Nephthys was its silent guardian. Yet for all her association with death, Nephthys was not a figure of sorrow alone. She was also a mother. Some myths tell of her union with Osiris, a fleeting moment of passion or deception, which resulted in the birth of Anubis, the jackal-headed god of mummification. Whether out of love for Osiris or in defiance of Set, Nephthys gave birth to a god who would forever be tied to her domain. Anubis, like his mother, did not seek power or worship. He simply performed his sacred duty, preserving the bodies of the dead, ensuring that they reached the afterlife intact. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe was a cycle, and Nephthys played her part with quiet devotion. Despite her importance, Nephthys remained a figure of mystery. She was the unseen, the one who existed between worlds, the goddess of the threshold between life and death. While Isis was praised for her magic and motherhood, Nephthys was honored in the silence of tombs, in the laments of mourners, in the flickering candlelight of funerary rites. The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, was a story of great gods and mighty kings, but it was also a story of those who stood in the shadows, ensuring that the balance was maintained. Yet Nephthys was not alone in this task. There was another divine force that helped uphold the balance of the cosmos, the Ennead, the sacred council of 9 gods, who together ruled over creation, justice, and the divine order. And it was within this divine council that the fate of gods and mortals alike would be decided. The Ennead, the divine council in the grand design of Egyptian mythology. No single god ruled alone. The cosmos was governed not by a single will, but by a collective force. The Ennead, a sacred council of 9 deities who shaped the universe, upheld justice and determined the fate of both gods and mortals. This divine assembly, led by Ra, was not merely a pantheon. It was the very structure of existence, a reflection of the balance between order and chaos. The first gods, Egypt and creation of the universe, had set the foundations of the world, but it was the Ennead that ensured it remained in motion. The Ennead consisted of the most powerful gods, Ra, Shu, Tefnut, Geb, Nut, Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys. Each played a role in maintaining the balance of creation. Ra, as the supreme sun god, presided over them, ensuring that the cosmic order, Ma'at, was upheld. Shu and Tefnut represented Yu, air and moisture, the unseen forces that sustained life. Geb and Nut were the earth and sky, the physical framework of existence. Osiris governed the afterlife. Isis embodied magic and motherhood. Nephthys guided souls to the underworld. And Set, though often cast as a villain, played the necessary role of the force that tested and strengthened order. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe had not created a world of perfect harmony, but one of delicate equilibrium, with each god holding a thread in the vast web of existence. The Ennead did not always agree. Like any council, they debated, argued, and, at times, made controversial decisions. When Horus and Set fought for the throne of Egypt, it was the Ennead that held the divine trial, deciding who was truly worthy of rule. Their deliberations were long, sometimes conflicting, as they weighed the merits of strength versus birthright, stability versus justice. This was not merely a myth. It was a reflection of the real struggles of kingship, law, and governance in ancient Egypt. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe was not a tale of unquestioned divine rule, but of negotiation, conflict, and resolution. Yet for all their authority, the Ennead were not invincible. They were bound by Ma'at, the cosmic order, which even the gods could not defy without consequence. If the balance was broken, if chaos overtook order, the universe itself could unravel. This is why Ra, despite being the mightiest of the gods, feared the rise of disorder. It is why Osiris ruled the dead with justice, why Horus fought to reclaim his father's throne, and why Set, despite his role as a disruptor, was never completely destroyed. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe was not a tale of static perfection, but of constant struggle, a reminder that balance must always be fought for. The Ennead's influence extended beyond myth. Pharaohs saw themselves as their earthly representatives ruling in their name, maintaining order in a world that always teetered on the edge of chaos. Temples were built in their honor, rituals performed to align the mortal world with the divine. Even after centuries, their presence remained woven into the very identity of Egypt. The first gods. Egypt and creation of the universe was not just a legend. It was the foundation of an entire civilization, a belief system that guided the lives. Trillions yet, for all their power, even the gods were not immune to change. Time moved forward, new deities rose, beliefs shifted, and the world evolved. The Ennead, once the supreme rulers of the cosmos, would one day fade from worship, their temples abandoned, their stories buried beneath the sands of time. But their legacy, their influence, their myth, that would never die. The first gods. Egypt and creation of the universe had shaped the ancient world, and even today, their echoes remain, hidden in the myths, the monuments, and the mysteries left behind. So now you know, the first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe was not just a myth, but a vast, intricate system of cosmic balance, struggle, and destiny. These gods were not distant figures. They were forces of nature, rulers of time, and symbols of everything that makes up existence itself. They shaped the heavens, the earth, and even the afterlife, weaving their presence into every aspect of life. And yet their stories are more than just relics of an ancient past. They are lessons, reflections of human nature, of power, of chaos and order. But here's the real question. What does this mean for you? If even the gods had to fight for balance, if creation itself was forged through struggle, then what does that say about our own lives? Perhaps the trials we face, the chaos we endure, are simply part of a greater order, one that demands resilience, strength, and wisdom. If Horus had given up against Set, if Ra had let Apophis consume the sun, if Osiris had never returned as judge of the dead, the world would have fallen into darkness. So ask yourself, what battles are you facing? And what is your role in maintaining the balance in your own life? Now, if this glimpse into Egyptian mythology fascinated you, just imagine what else is hidden in the ancient world. There are still so many gods, myths, and secrets waiting to be uncovered. If you want to dive deeper into these mysteries, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because there's so much more to explore, and you won't want to miss what comes next. The first gods, Egypt, and creation of the universe is just the beginning.